What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Trill Bro, dude. Already coughing up top to start. We're still getting over COVID. Me and Sam, both. Well, Sam did not have COVID, but he's sick right now as well. We're living the fucking dream. We're just always sick here on this podcast. But before we get into anything,
literal sickos. Yeah,
we are literal. The NBA sickness has spread to the rest of our bodies. But before we get into anything, I want to talk about our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, the newest and best place to play fantasy sports and win big prizes. And before the trade deadline, we're about a month out from the trade deadline. You can guess where players will get traded before this deadline, and you can win up to $500 in Underdog bonus cash. Get those slot bucks. You can also win $250 if you come in second place. Third place, you can get $50 in Underdog bonus cash. All you have to do is just guess where players are going, and you can win a ton of money on Underdog. And once you get that cash, you can spend it on their pick'em. You can do higher or lower on your favorite NBA players' stats every single night, points, rebounds, assists. And then you can also do their fantasy drafts, which are a ton of fun. I've been doing them all throughout the season and will continue to. So we're in the thick of slop season right now. It's kind of dried up for slop, but between now and then, there should be a lot of slop dropping. So make your guesses. The link is in the description for that contest. So, Sam, what's going on? How are your holidays?
This is great. I was just gonna say, just to further plug the show, just to sort of remind everyone of what kind of an investment being a Patreon, a YKB Patreon holder is. Not only do you get on the ground floor on some of these financial incentives through fantasy, but also there are personal. You could achieve great personal success. You can discuss the podcast on a first date, and you will get a second date. We have a 100% hit rate of the podcast being discussed on a first date. You definitely want to do this. Women love sports podcasts, especially 100%. Smaller ones, especially lower budget ones, especially ones that are two white guys. Those are like everything about it is just a perfect first date thing. You're gonna come off great.
Both of English and Irish descent too, so about as white as you can possibly get.
Right, you just like bog people, like two bog persons. Like this is like the exact thing you want to do. So, I just want to put that out there. So if you are a Patreon holder, congratulations, Casanova. You're ready. You're ready to go to the next level.
Absolutely right. Shout out to Sad Man from the Discord. His name is literally Sad Man. And he said that he was explaining on a date recently who Sam was and talked to her about the Discord and the podcast, and he got a second date. So once again, this is 100% success rate.
Let him cook. Riz God. Shout out to Sad Man. On the
so appropriate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe we'll soon be pleased man, contented man, self-actualized man. This is what we're selling on this podcast.
Exactly.
Maslow'ian period. You too can climb. Maybe if you're a YKB,
Sam, please look at the comments.
Okay.
Sad Man is in the comments.
Let's go.
I have some clarifying details. I just got home from work.
Okay,
God.
All right. I like this. Let him cook. Right. Hold
on. We're gonna let Sad Man cook.
We're gonna let Sad Man cook. I'm gonna continue saying that. What I want to say about this is we are offering self-actualization. I'd like to point out Sad Man has a job, which again. Probably puts him in the upper 99th percentile of YKB listeners in terms of employment. So, and this is because, he's a Patreon holder. So,
stock going up.
Yeah. Really great.
Opposite of Tesla.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're basically the Tesla, but the old good version for NBA podcasts. Like when you want to get on board before the crash.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to. Well, by the time we sell this thing to Bill Simmons, you want to be off the horse. So,
Bill Simmons buys in the same way that Elon Musk bought Twitter to run it into the ground. Yeah. Bill Simmons buys YKB and just completely liquidates all the assets.
Just my cats. It's just both of us have been replaced with Chris Ryan and a Chris Ryan clone.
So they just talk about their like. Is DeAnthony Melton the Jonah Hill of the NBA?
This is like, I mean, like, I would love one where we just do catty, bitchy NBA gossip about who's going to buy the team. Like, I would love that version of the show.
So people are itching for that, honestly.
Yeah.
Sad man, I got to be honest with you. We got to move on with the podcast. So if you want to throw your comments in there, we will.
We will circle back.
We will circle back. We
yes.
do. We're 5 minutes.
We are going to have to start the pod though.
Yeah. So an insane performance once again in the NBA happened last night. Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points against the Chicago Bulls, the most amount of points scored in a game since Kobe Bryant against the Toronto Raptors. The infamous LeBron James knew was going to happen type game.
Okay.
All right, hold on. Before we get into it, he's known her for 6 or 7 years, and he just asked her out recently. It was technically a third date. It was just the first one I knew was a date before it happened. Okay, so either way,
this man has so much riz. He went on 2 dates without knowing. That is incredible.
That's what the YKB Patreons are.
Like, this is the kind of riz that Sad Man has brought to that. Like, they might. I also haven't been on a date for 7 before that. Okay, so I want to
forget that part.
Yeah, okay, we'll get that part in. But also, I would like to point out for Sad Man too that there's a strong chance. Okay, gotcha. So he's not sure if they've been dates, but here's what I will say. Known 6 to 7 years. Riz God. The fact that you converted the date. I'm dropping kayfabe right now. That is actually genuinely very impressive. Yeah.
Cheers.
And you should be lauded for that. Yes.
Yes. It's hard. It's hard to do.
This is an endorsement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to do, folks.
It's really hard to do. As someone who has tried and failed at that in my younger and more vulnerable days. So it's a hard shift. It's a hard gear shift. I will say that.
All right. Before Sam goes full incel, let's talk about Donovan.
All right, let's talk about the Donovan Mitchell trade.
This is an anti-incel podcast as well. Right. Okay. So
hold on. We don't.
All right, enough.
We don't want to alienate our base.
Oh God.
Not incel.
We're 7 minutes in and we haven't talked about basketball.
Okay, I'm just saying that, I mean literal people who are involuntarily celibate, not the incels.
Yes. That's
right.
not what I meant.
Which is
those who self-identify and are proud of.
So speaking of incels, Donovan Mitchell, he had 7 points. He had 70 points yesterday, 71, 20 free throws.
No, he left the land of incels. Now he's
now he's. Well, they're pretty. We're gonna leave the soaking joke on the table and we're gonna keep moving. Genuinely a very impressive performance from Donovan Mitchell though yesterday.
Incredible.
The assists are what stand out to me because usually when guys score this many points, it's kind of a Booker thing where he's just kind of getting fed. You know what I'm saying? And he did seem to do that. He did this mostly in the flow of the game. I mean, obviously every time you get a little close, once you get 50 or 60, guys are obviously going to be feeding you, but 20 free throws. What did it end up being? 10 assists, 12 assists,
11.
That's really impressive. That's a double. Anytime you get that many points and you had enough stats to get a log a legitimate double, I think that's really good. I mean, and I know everybody was out, and I know it was the Bulls, and I know that it was
but honestly, I would say it's more because the fact that you didn't have a ton of rotation. You didn't have Mobley, Garland, Dean Wade didn't play. A lot of guys that are normally in their rotation did not play in the game. So he had to carry a massive scoring load plus playmaking.
So what small forward was available then?
Was it Chetty?
Yeah, I believe Chetty Osman was available, which is that's interesting. The Cavs won again. Interesting.
Oh, amazing!
Very interesting.
All due to the O's man, who's apparently good friends with Donovan Mitchell. So that even is. That's another level of he's always friends with the best player on the Cavs, apparently. So
he literally hated Rudy Gobert and played some of the worst defense you've ever seen, and now he's befriended Chetty Osman and he's an MVP candidate. I'm just saying.
There's a direct correlation.
There's a direct correlation, yes.
But obviously he plays amazing. The Bulls did have their gripes after the game, and honestly, they were right. That was a lane violation. I watched the game. It totally was. They should have been mad. The game that was sent to overtime due to the lane violation. He was able to rack up some more points, but he had 60 in regulation, and he was playing absolutely out of his mind. And I wanted to go back and revisit the conversation that we had during the summer. Sam came on the podcast before he was the co-host, and it was the day of the trade, and it was a topic that we discussed at length. And I think that at the time, I went back and I re-listened to the episode today. And at the time, the only part of my analysis that I'm mad about is that when we revisit this trade, which has taken the Cavs from a competitive play-in-ish team to top 4 or 5 in the Eastern Conference, and I think everyone would say is like a legit contender to at least get to the conference finals, if not the finals.
Okay.
I said in that the only thing I'm mad about my take on it was that I said Colin Sexton was the one that maybe had some more upside that was untapped for the Jazz when they made that trade, and it turned out to be Lauri Markkanen, who was the one that really has had more upside. But I'm still just kind of going based on my original take on it, and I'm still going based on my thoughts on the NBA and something that we talked about last week with Trae Young, which is like, there are really only 20 guys that matter in the NBA. And I think Donovan Mitchell's one of them. And I've been a little bit higher on Donovan Mitchell historically than you, just past 2 or 3 years, really. And I just want to say, are you willing to admit you were wrong?
No.
No, you will not hold the L.
You will not hold me back. I mean, obviously, he's been like in a normal year, he would get MVP votes.
Sure.
He will not this year, but he would have if it were like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So, I mean, it's tough to argue with that. Was I negative on it, or did I? I think I said it was a good trade for both sides.
You said it was a win-win. To be fair to you, you said win-win. Mm-hmm. Your take on it was basically, for what you thought that the Jazz could have got for both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, what they got was a good return.
Yeah.
And
I stand by that.
And you were higher on the draft compensation that they got back due to the fact I was lower on the draft compensation just because I was like, I just feel like the Cavs are going to be really good for like the next 5 to 10 years with the current core that they have. And I wouldn't want those picks necessarily. I might have gone for a prospect, or I might have gone for a team like they did with the Gobert trade where there is potential to kind of fall apart. Right. But to be fair, I did not foresee the Timberwolves being this bad this quick. I was talking about the later out picks, not these picks.
Well, and that's and why I still stand by that, even though the Cavs I think look well, because I think this is probably like a top 10 percentile like outcome of this trade. Like I feel like you can't ask more for Donovan Mitchell. I still think it's a win-win. I think both teams are doing very well. With both teams are in much better position than they were before the Donovan Mitchell trade. You know, you can't say that about the Rudy Gobert trade, but
definitely not.
Yeah, but I would say a couple of things. I do think that where the Cavs was a little bit suppressed because of the Jared Allen injury. Remember, they were like 3rd in the East last year, like until he got hurt, and he missed like a lot of games. So I don't think they were like, I don't think the Cavs minus Donovan Mitchell was necessarily like a play-in team. Like if they were like, they probably would have been like a 4 or 5 seed. You know what I'm saying? If they
ran it back, they'd probably be in that 5-6 range, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like that. So, but you know, obviously you want to make this kind of trade. So I think basically where I come down on is I stand by that analysis. I really think picks, even with a team as young and talented as the Cavs, shit changes fast, man. Like the Celtics almost lost their team 2 years ago, and nobody would have thought that in 2017. Like that there would be like trade rumors and like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were going to like get sent out. Like guys get hurt all the time. And the fact that they're all unprotected is what makes that like so crazy. That's what I feel like why the pick return was so good. I think I still like this a lot better than anything they would have gotten from the Knicks. Because what would they have max got from the Knicks? 2 Knicks picks, which are admittedly juicy, but.
So from what I gathered, I went back and I looked at some of the Woj and Windy reporting that came out after.
Yeah.
It sounds like the package would have been something like where the Knicks drew the line in the sand was they didn't want to give up their own unprotected picks plus Quentin Grimes on top of RJ Barrett. So it would have been something like RJ Barrett, Quentin Grimes, and like 3 unprotected Knicks firsts in the distant future. So like not like those shitty picks that they've gotten. I don't even want to say shitty, but like middling picks that they've gotten from the Wizards, the Pistons, the Nuggets, the protected picks, right? The Bucks. So the Jazz were more interested in the quality. The Jazz were interested in the quality of the pick as opposed to the quantity, and the Knicks were hesitant to include both. And then things kind of really went off the rails when they decided to extend RJ, because I think that the Jazz thought, let's get a few prospects, let's get a few picks. And that's what they ended up getting. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I was just probably a little bit off on my evaluation of how valuable Lauri Markkanen could become.
I think everybody was.
Everyone.
Yeah, I don't think that's a particularly...
No one anticipated him to be in the All-Star conversation. Like, I don't think this was like any outcome that anyone saw except for maybe Will Hardy or some shit. Like,
yeah, right, exactly.
So,
and by the way, do we really think this is like who Lauri Markkanen is? Like, I would not be shocked if there was a Julius Randle return to earth.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He might be a little bit more scalable because he is a really good shooter, but I do wonder about the defense, the on-ball opportunities, playing in a 5-out system. Like, how much is this really benefiting Lauri Markkanen? Maybe it's a little bit inflated for what he really is. But if the Jazz's goal was to inflate, and we talked about it on the podcast, if their goal was to inflate Sexton and Markkanen's value, they've done a fantastic job with Lauri Markkanen at the very least.
Yeah.
If they want to if they decide they want to go even further into the shitter and they want to trade Lauri Markkanen, like, they could get real value for him back. And that adds on top of what they got for that. But I think they're probably going to end up keeping him just so that the fans have something to look forward to. They can be a competitive play-in-ish team. Yeah. But kind of my whole thing on this is like, I still think, and I've thought a lot about this, I don't really think there's like a comparable trade. Like, this trade is kind of unique in that, like, every other star trade that has happened for the last 5-10 years has been guy on an expiring contract, Kawhi, AD, to a lesser extent Harden. Harden had 2 years left.
Yeah.
Injury
Kyrie had 2 years left when he was traded. Yeah.
Kyrie. Injury concerns with AD.
Yeah.
Injury concerns with Kawhi and contract concerns because he obviously left a year later. Harden.
Injury concerns with Kyrie. Like,
concerns with Kyrie. Character concerns with Kyrie.
Yeah.
The thing about Harden, same thing. Character concerns, injury concerns, aging concerns. Okay, maybe not injury. Injury was the one thing with him because he was an Iron Man. That's unfair to Harden. Yeah. But there were legit question marks.
Playoff ceiling concerns, I think, for Harden was probably one of the big things. Yeah. Because I see where we're kind of going with this is talking about, like, how did Donovan Mitchell become available? Because that's, at that price. And I personally, speaking to me, why I misevaluated Donovan Mitchell, I really underestimated how badly he fucking hated it there.
Yes.
And I think that maybe he was like mostly a good soldier, you know what I'm saying? By not like making it like an entire spectacle. Like, everyone kind of knew that he wanted out. But
week before he leaked the places he wanted to go, Brooklyn, New York, and Miami were the 3 places.
Right.
So it was known by that point.
It worked out well for him. He went to one of those 3 places. That never works out. That you whatever you say, like, a good place, it's like,
unless you're like literally cream of the crop, like top 5 player. Who were the other guys we were discussing?
Yeah, exactly. And like, Jimmy Butler barely made it there. He needed a sign and trade to get there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I just think with Mitchell, like, the other thing that's crazy, it really is insane how badly Rudy Gobert destroyed that Jazz team. And like, because I think this is making us like reevaluate, because I think what everyone saw was Rudy Gobert is a 3-time defensive player of the year. I'm a little vindicated in that I've always thought Rudy Gobert was extremely overrated as a defender, especially as a playoff defender. And I think that
Sam, I'm not letting you get away with this. You ruined the Gobert trade podcast
because I didn't believe my own evaluation.
I know.
Yes. because I wanted the contrarian juice so bad. I wanted to make sure that my knee-jerk thing is contrarianism, and that's what I did again here. Which
I said it on the podcast for the Donovan Mitchell one. I was like, well, you're saying this because you're a contrarian.
Yes, exactly. But I also I do kind of believe some of that stuff, but I do think that if I should have stuck to my guns and realized that, like, some of that. Rudy Gobert just has this effect. He makes guys lose the will to live. Like, because I cannot believe how bad that I was really alarmed by Donovan Mitchell's like last year there. Like, because I guess that's the thing is he was playing like he was on the Detroit Pistons.
Sure.
And like they were a playoff team. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that it sucked, but like you're the star and you're mailing it in that bad. I guess the other thing we're learning here is the Bill tropes don't fucking matter. The old boomer takes do not fucking matter. That is a guy who gave up on his team, quit on his team, demanded to leave, and guess what? He's fine again. That doesn't matter. That is not carried over in the slightest. So
that's why I always think with defense, I just don't really even like unless a guy is like Trae Young will never be a good defender. Like, and it's not even his fault necessarily. His tools will never allow him to be a neutral defender in the NBA. That's just bottom line. Donovan Mitchell was always hyper athletic, crazy wingspan, was a good defender his rookie year. And then as he got more of an offensive load with Utah, as it became more of the center of everything, his defense fell off a little bit and a lot of it during the last year, especially like you said, like on that podcast, you and NB were bringing up like, Jalen Brunson just cooked him in the playoffs. And I was like, yeah, that matters. But also like, at the time, he was going to a situation that I was like, this is just perfect. Like, you have Mobley and Allen on the back line. Like, even if he's getting blown by, his point of attack isn't great. Like, I still think there are ways that he can, like, if he can carry the offense, that those two can carry the defense. And, like, that's a really crazy combo to have the potential top 10 offense and defense. And, but just back to my other point was, like, the stars that get traded are never the 25, 26-year-old guys who are still improving and have had like a pretty good track record. Because I do think that the first, like from the bubble on, that was a different Donovan Mitchell than we saw his first few years in the league. Like his first 3 seasons, like he was a good borderline all-star player that was maybe a little bit overhyped because he was kind of came out of nowhere as a rookie, bursted onto the scene. But by like his 4th or 5th year, like he had become a better passer and playmaker. He finally became a good finisher. And the only thing that was really left from his game was the defense. Like we knew that he was going to be a positive offensive player, even if he's going to have some inefficient nights. Like in that, I brought up during that podcast, like the 2021 playoffs, he was incredible until he got hurt. And like he averaged over 30 points a game, efficient 30, won the Jazz that series easily. And, I know it was against a young Grizzlies team, but like still, I think that stuff matters. And now we're seeing him in the perfect situation for himself, a happier, a more locked in, a context that we like to make fun of the Knicks. And believe me, I make fun of the Knicks a lot, but like, I still really can't, I can blame them for not making that trade because at the time I said it, and I stand by this, the Knicks' goal was always to have a competitive team that got to the playoffs and was basically going to have potential to get a 3rd star in free agency, right? But if you got Brunson, Mitchell, whatever, like try to get a 3rd star, right? My thing is that I think where the Knicks really fucked up is maybe they overvalued assets or whatever. I was like it's fucking Donovan Mitchell. Like this guy has potential to get better. He could be as Q, not Q.
QAnon. Our friends at QAnon.
Q and not Anon.
An anonymous Q. So
who is a Knicks fan, always said, like, he's like, there's potential for Donovan Mitchell to be Damian Lillard. And if he's Damian Lillard, then you're going to have a shot to get to conference finals. You're going to have a shot to attract guys in free agency and blah, blah, blah. Where I think it's fine that the Knicks didn't make the trade is that, like, I still think that Donovan Mitchell, the 71-point Donovan Mitchell, thriving in an amazing context for him, would not have been the same exact player in the New York Knicks situation. Like, for what they would have had to give up, I mean, I'm not an RJ guy, so maybe that actually would have been a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
but like I still think that like they're fortunate. It doesn't raise their ceiling in the same way that it raises the ceiling for the Cavs.
Yes.
And I understand why they didn't do the trade. Having said that, like, probably just make the trade, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you look at that stuff in the light of day, it's tough to not have been able to get Donovan Mitchell for 2 picks, Quentin Grimes and RJ Barrett, and you didn't do it. Like that hurts. Like that does.
And Quentin Grimes is the best part of that trade, by the way. We made fun of them for taking him off the table, but he would have been by far the best part of that trade for the Jazz. He's good.
Wow,
like he's a role player. But
wow. I was just gonna say that's more an indictment of what else the Knicks were sending out. Sure. I think so. But I guess so. That's the thing. You know, if we want to relitigate, you know, who won, who lost. I mean, because I think the only thing you can criticize the Jazz for is maybe they should have just kept Donovan Mitchell once Rudy Gobert was gone. I think that's the only, because I don't think the Knicks package was good. I think it's been bared out that wasn't good. I never thought that was good. I think it's fine to get 7. It's 7 picks, right? It's 4 picks and 3 swaps, or 3 picks and 3 swaps.
That sounds about right. I mean, yeah, I think is it? 7?
It goes 7 years out. It goes 7 years out, and I know that, but I can look it up here. But that is a lot to get back for a guy, and especially if you're rebuilding, I get why you would pick that. I defend that actually. I think
4 firsts, 3 unprotected. I'm sorry, it was 3 unprotected first round picks and 2 swaps.
2 swaps, okay, so it's 5. That's still
5 potential firsts, and the swaps are far out. They're 26 and 28.
Yeah, 28. Yeah, and they're all backloaded. So the 29 first round pick, the 27 first round pick, and the 25 first round pick.
And also, I mean,
the swap, the 26 swap.
I said on the original podcast, and I stand by this, everyone was acting like Ochai Agbaji was an extra lottery pick, and I was like, I'm not an Ochai. Like, I just don't think he's that good. And he's barely played for them, and he's like already 23 years old. So like, for an older rookie to like not really be playing much, like I think that part of the trade might have been a little bit overstated. But Laurie being as good as he is a huge boon for the Jazz in that regard. And they got all the picks, but like, I don't know. I just think that like if a guy's in the middle of his prime, he's locked up. Okay, so this is why I think it's different than most star trades. Right. Middle of prime.
Yep.
Getting better, at least on offense, was getting better every single year.
Yep.
3 years left on his contract, which is like unheard of. Like that does not really happen a ton. And then on top of that, like you could argue that he might have more of that upward mobility type where he can crack into the top 12, 15 players in the NBA, even if he was on the outside of that conversation in the right context. And I just like am like kind of like I just would not trade that guy. It is more complicated because we know he wanted out. Like, and
that's kind of where I come down.
Maybe they got ahead of it.
Too far gone, yeah.
But like, if they had played this first half of the season with Will Hardy as coach and all of this, like, think about just think about what they could get at this deadline, and maybe it's about the same. But like, I think there's a world where they let that play out and they get something crazy back.
I mean, so that we're a counter narrative to this is unfolding right before our eyes in the Brooklyn Nets. Of what you can do when you tough out uncomfy, you know what I'm saying? And like what you can, your Sixers had a little bit of a lesson in this before, you know what I'm saying? I think they did pretty well with what was a pretty nasty situation with Bill Simmons.
Bill was like, Daryl, you got to trade me.
Daryl, you got to get me out of here. This Spotify, that's Trump. It's Trump again. It's Trump or Cartman. And it's just Bill is the Trump Cartman sliding scale. You can't ever go too far one way. But I think that's exactly what it was. When was Danny Ainge hired? Was that
Danny Ainge was hired in the middle of last season, I believe, but I think that he was there for longer. Like I think
he was definitely consulting and like
100%.
Yeah, doing all that stuff.
Yeah, it was like the middle of last season, basically.
Okay.
By the way, a little aside here, Will just said in the comments, Isaiah Joe is currently cooking the Celtics. You're down 15 at almost halftime. He has 11. He has 11 points.
Well, that's
I'm sure Shea is cooking us. So Not playing. But I just want to say, this is not my magnum opus, Will. I am still in pain that we let Isaiah Joe go. So
this is like finding out that the love of your life, who left you at the altar, won the lottery 3 years later.
Oh yeah,
no, yeah, perfect. I knew she was a good one.
Someone in the Discord suggested that we try to trade for Bryn Forbes, and I was like, I will unalive myself if we trade for Bryn Forbes 6 months after letting Isaiah Joe walk for nothing.
Oh no! Oh,
but yes.
Anyway, Celtics are fine. Nothing bad.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
If this game keeps going like this, I will start age gap discourse on the timeline though. So. That's my new strategy. Like the second anyone wants to talk about the Celtics, Celtics look pretty bad, losing to the Jazz without Shea. Well, what happens when a 42-year-old dates a 24-year-old? Let's talk about that.
You're not thinking about that.
Yeah, I bet you weren't thinking about that. Well, what's this? Oh, you want to go back to talking about the Celtics? Not so fast. We're still sorting this out. Everyone, you need to declare what your opinion on this is now. Speaking of things on first dates that are good to bring up, age gap discourse. Always talk about it. People love that. People love talking about it.
If you go on Family Feud, number one answer. Age gap.
Age gap. Yeah. Steve Harvey screaming it.
Second anti-Nazi NBA podcast.
Yeah, anti-Nazi. We are the number one anti-Nazi NBA podcast.
That's correct. Yeah. Number one.
Back to Donovan Mitchell. I really think that it is a little bit of an extreme circumstance because I think timing has things to do with it. I think when Danny Ainge was hired is an underratedly important part of this because I think he got carte blanche to do what he wanted to do.
He saw everything going on behind the scenes, and
he was
give the benefit of the doubt there,
right? And look, and you know what? I also think it's not. I wouldn't make this decision. I could see how someone would make the decision. Do we want our first-year head coach to have to deal with a disgruntled star who might ultimately want out?
Sure.
You know, and that can really undermine like your authority and like, you know, just a lot of stuff that calls into question a lot of things. So I still think that's a totally fine, even with Donovan Mitchell playing the way it is. I still think it's a win-win trade. I think I would feel better about the Jazz if they were worse, just because Wemby's in the next draft.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. I just think that, and it's not even necessarily like if they really wanted to, they could get to that point. They might not want to do that, but like,
yeah,
I would feel really good if like this trade made the Jazz terrible, and then they had like a chance to get like Scoot or Wemby in the next draft. Because then you're like, whatever, we at least get the next potential superstar type guy. And as good as Mitchell is, like, I'm not sure if I'm willing to put him in that top tier of guys. I think he's more on like the second, third team All NBA type guy.
You know what's funny? I think Danny Ainge's worst move was the Bojan Bogdanovic trade so far.
Oh yeah, 100%. I never really got it from the jump, and it's not even that Kelly Olynyk's bad. It's that Bojan's really good, and like if he had just played like 20 games, you would definitely get more for him than just Kelly Olynyk.
Well, and like also you're like actually kind of trying to win right now. Like I mean, Kelly Olynyk has been a huge part of their team. Like that double big that there is like floor inversion there, and I get that that's kind of like what makes the Jazz is like having Markkanen and Olynyk kind of invert things and create cross matchups and everything. But Bojan Bogdanovic is really fucking good, man.
Yeah.
Like you probably could have got more for him, and so it's weird that miserly Danny Ainge did not get more for him. He's famously a horrible guy to negotiate with. Like everyone in the league hates it.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine what those. So the guy that negotiates for the Knicks is Brock Aller, who apparently negotiated this trade. I can't imagine what those discussions were like because they said that he was like a Hinkie level sicko when it came to assets.
Oh wow!
And like between him and Ainge, that there's a reason why those discussions went on for like 2 months and went nowhere because I think they both were just like, all right, add another protection.
Yeah, exactly.
Get rid of that. Throw in this player. Like it probably was psychotic.
I think I remember like or maybe I just heard this behind the scenes. Like Kobe Altman like fucking hated every minute of the Kobe like the trying to do the fucking Kyrie Irving trade because he kept like coming back with something different. It's like fuck you, no, call the trade. Like he's like at the last second be like, okay, now we want something else. Just like
it's exactly
premium dirty tactics.
That's what Morey did with the Kings last year. Everyone said with Halliburton. He at one point tried to get Halliburton and Fox. for Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. It's just sick. It's another level of sickness that we will never truly understand. Yeah. So before we move on to the next thing, I just think like if you have one of the 20 best players in the NBA, or at least someone who's in the conversation that has potential to get better, don't trade that guy until you really know what he is. Like that's my whole thing is like, maybe they had their evaluation of Donovan Mitchell and they thought that he was just going to remain in that all-star conversation, not all NBA conversation. And that's what changes all of this. But if you look at the first few years of his career and you consider that he never really played basketball all that much until like the weird thing about Mitchell as a prospect, and people don't really talk about this that much. He was like a 3-and-D college guard. Like he was not the on like
that's why he went where he was. That was like what he was. He was like the high high floor guy like in that draft. Sure. I remember. Yeah.
Analytics loved him. Like he had like a high and like everyone thought that he was going to be this role player type guy that came into the league, played good defense, shot threes, did whatever. We didn't know about the on-ball ability, the athleticism. Like we knew he was athletic, but we didn't know he was as athletic as he was. His development curve is one of the weirder trajectories just because it's like most of these guys come into the league and like there are role players who were superstars in college. We always talk about like PJ Tucker having the offense run through him and Torrey Craig being like a on-ball creator type guy that they have to morph into role players. Mitchell is one of the rare exceptions where he was the role player that became a star. Like even like the outlier development guys were always the guy. Like Giannis, Siakam, all these guys like were the on-ball type. So like he's one of the weirder stories in the NBA. Like he really hasn't even been focused. Basketball has only been his focus for like 9 years, and he's become one of the best players in the world.
Well, and it's also like it's so much more extreme than like when this happens with like other guys. Like other guys this happened with is like Chris Middleton, you know what I'm saying?
Very good player, but not
We'll make the jump to role player, and he's like, he's a very good player. He's all-star, some years, like very good, but like this is like, again, he would probably get MVP votes in most years that weren't this insane MVP class, like that they're going to have to like figure out. I do still think though, like we do have to consider that like this is Donovan Mitchell going somewhere else. And you could have gotten last year's Donovan Mitchell again, if you ran him back, and that doesn't help your trade value. That doesn't, he's 1 year shorter on his contract. Which if you just, he probably makes the other part of the calculus is they probably thought he made the team too good, which is less
turned out
to be moot. So,
maybe they wanted a competitive team. They didn't want a really good team. Like there's a difference in that, like you can get like the 12th pick or you can get like the 21st pick. And like, usually when you're trying to take as many swings, getting a little bit, even if it's a little bit later in the lottery, that's a good range to be in if you're taking upside swings.
And, I do think that when it gets down to grind time here, like they are going to like, but I would not be surprised to see them slide like into like the play-in tournament and like, or maybe even out of it by the end of
I think they're going to trade some of their like more, they're more important role players. Like I think that they'll probably move on from Malik Beasley. I think they'll probably move on from guys that have less time on their contracts. I think the only two guys that like are for sure off limits there right now, unless they get blown away with something, are Jordan Clarkson and Lauri Markkanen.
Which is absurd that Jordan Clarkson's off.
They love Jordan Clarkson though. Like he's not. It's more about what he brings off the court than on the court. Like the ownership loves him. He likes playing in Utah, which it's like Harrison Barnes in Sacramento. Like Harrison Barnes is the only player that's ever went to Sacramento and wasn't drafted by them and is like, I like it here. Like it would be hard to sell people on trading a guy who likes the place that no one likes, basically. Right. And he's like pretty good. So like it is tough. But just to run down Mitchell's stats before we move on from this part, it's kind of crazy how efficient he's been this year. He's averaging 29 points on 49% from the field, 41% on 9 threes a game, which is just like Steph, Dame, and Clay, and no one else. Sometimes Buddy Hield. Like it's like crazy. Like, and that might come down a little bit, but like even to have half a season like that is incredibly impressive. And he's shooting 86% from the line, almost 5 assists per game, and he is currently averaging about 4 rebounds per game as well. And he's actually a pretty good rebounder when he really wants to be. So it's one of those things where I think that the Cavs, you know, I didn't write off the Cavs by any means, but I was a little bit lower on them than I was to start the year, just because I thought Mobley was going to take the leap. I thought Mobley was going to be like surefire all-star, all-defense guy. And he's been good, but he hasn't been like second year, third year leap great. He already started at a very high level. His floor was incredibly high because he was already so good defensively as a rookie. But I was maybe a little bit lower because I was like, Garland's not really healthy. Mobley hasn't taken a leap. But if Mitchell plays this well and they have relative health going into the playoffs, like if that 4-5 matchup is the Sixers or the Bucks or whoever, that's going to be a hell of a fucking series if the Cavs are in that 4 seed. Because it does look like, I know it's funny to say this with the Celtics down 20 at halftime somehow.
We love it.
17 points for Isaiah Joe in the first half. Unbelievable. But it does feel like Brooklyn and Boston are kind of separating themselves, at least in the regular season, from the rest of the pack. Like they don't really lose games. So it's kind of hard to catch those teams. But that 3 through 5 range, getting the 3 seed is going to be so important for the Cavs, the Bucks, and the Sixers, because none of these teams want to play each other in the first round. That's just going to be a nightmare.
You can't be in the 4-5 because you would have to win three series that are harder than anything you would find in the West. Like
6 or 7 games minimum.
Yes. Yeah, like you would basically have the Celtics path from last year, like, but the Nets kind of nailed it. You know what I'm saying? Like the Nets had like fallen apart. But that was like what the Celtics were looking at last year out of the 2 seed was like, you know, Nets, Bucks, and then whoever came out of the other side of the bracket. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, honestly, this is going to like depend on health again, you know? And I think that's like going to be like, you know, the Celtics look vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Like they have not had still 5-5. I was just looking at the standings, 5-5 in their last 10. Brooklyn is literally 1-10 in a row. Last time they lost
15
12 in a row.
15 and 16 they've won, I believe.
Yeah. And the team that beat them was the Celtics,
and it was a close game too.
It was a close game, yep. But the Celtics are not have not been looking like the world beaters they've been looking for. Now, have you looked at the luck adjusted stats recently and like shot quality and like some of that stuff?
Yeah, well, first off, I do believe in shot quality, generally speaking, and I know that you guys are generating a ton of good looks still. Yeah. I don't believe in any of the luck adjusted stuff. Any stat that tells me that the Kings are the second best team in the NBA is just garbage to me.
Okay. Fair enough. I will say that matches what I see with the Celtics, where a lot of teams hit some really fucking contested threes against them, and they gack a lot of open threes. Now,
James Harden literally turned into Steph Curry in game 1, and I was like, hitting every contested 3 against the Celtics. Yeah. And I was like, if this is what we're getting, then I feel great.
Yeah, I feel amazing. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and to be fair, I do think that, you know, part of the Celtics shot quality is why you're seeing, you know, these guys, the Celtics perimeter guys are not 45%. Like Grant Williams and Derek White are not like 40. They're not flamethrowers. You know, Malcolm Brogdon is not. Those guys are probably 37% 3-point shooters who are having their averages elevated slightly by the Celtics like shot quality thing. Sure. But this all is to say the point. What drives Celtics fans insane and why they're vulnerable is because whenever you do have that kind of high variance, anyone can beat you.
Sure.
Like there isn't a non-zero chance that Celtics are fighting for their life in like a 2-7 or a 1-8 matchup this year because they just miss shots. You know, like something that's like very like that Bulls Celtics 1-8 matchup. Even though I think this is a far, far, far superior team, just the Celtics team is so heavily reliant on 3-point shots, and that variance is so crazy. You do end up with games like what happened with the Nuggets, where they were just beating the shit out of them in every facet of the game. But as a result, just couldn't hit at threes, and they lost that game. Like,
broke the rim.
Yeah, they literally broke the rim
out of frustration. It's actually a great point that we will now transition into, because we want to talk about the Nuggets, and we want to talk about Jokic specifically. And this is where all the Sixers fans will tune out. And this is where maybe I guess I'm asking myself, do I have terminal podcaster brain?
Yeah.
Because I said coming into the year, there's no way Jokic could win 3 straight MVPs. I was like, there's no way. It's Bird, Wilt, and Russell. Like, there's no... LeBron never did it. Michael Jordan never did it.
Yeah. So here's where I come down on this, because I agreed with you, and I like coming into the year, I was like, I don't think they'll give it to Jokic a third time, because he would need to have an absurd season to overcome that. But there has been, for some reason, with Jokic, there has been a sea change. The tones are switching up. I'm going to call out friend of the pod, Zach Lowe, who has done the most egregious one of these, who is talking about people discounting the Jokic because of the 3 straight, like it's like some insane thing, when he literally admitted on his podcast that is why he did not give Giannis that third thing.
When Jokic won his first.
When Jokic won his first was because Giannis didn't have a title yet, and that would have been 3rd straight, and that would have been rarefied air for him. So here's what I would say. Jokic is having a fantastic season. I think it's absolutely, if this keeps up, absolutely, you can absolutely
can't not be in the conversation.
Yeah, he can't not be in the conversation. I think you should probably give it to him. I don't believe in the narrative shit. I think that always looks bad when we look back. I do think sometimes, like, the difference I would say with like someone like Jason Tatum or some of that stuff is that less of a narrative thing, and it's more just I want people to appreciate that part of the reason his teams are always good is because he's an easy fit versus a lot of the other NBA guys,
sure.
Which is why I think that is part of his value. I think that goes for Kawhi Leonard as well. You know what I'm saying? He's not the easiest guy in the world, but he just enables you to do so much with your team. I think it's totally fine to give Jokic a 3rd straight MVP. Like, he's been incredible, and he's been incredible every year. Like, and I get, maybe if you want to be like a playoffs purist, you can like really go after him for that. But I mean, it's not like hasn't gone anywhere. He's made the Western Conference Finals. He probably should have won the finals that year if Mason Plumlee doesn't have one of the biggest brain farts of all time.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'll push back on that. This is why I push back. The Lakers won that series like in 5 or 6. I know 6, that makes sure. Was it 6?
Maybe it was 5. I was almost positive it was 6, but maybe
I don't know. I just think that I think that everyone gives that Nuggets team the benefit of the doubt when like they were down 3-1 in the first round of the Jazz. They were down 3-1 to the Clippers. I know. I'm not saying that they didn't win, but I'm also saying it's like because it would have been 2-2 or whatever at the series, I believe at that point. Yeah. I just don't think that you can just for surefire say, oh, they would have beat LeBron and AD's Lakers. Like that LeBron and AD Lakers team was really, really good in the regular season.
Especially with Rondo shooting like 50% in the playoffs. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry that I will push back on this. I discount that team. I think it was an incredibly lucky set of circumstances.
I agree, but they were a way better regular season team than the Nuggets. They were. They only lost like 20 games the entire, or like they were on pace to win almost 60 games.
Wasn't like didn't Michael Porter Jr. miss like a shitload of games that year too though? Like
I think that was the only year he played a lot of games, if I remember correctly. Or no, maybe it was the next year.
Yeah, I think the next year was the
one where that might have been
a lot. Yeah, because Jamal Murray was out.
I'm not. Look, I'm on record as saying I actually think before the Jamal Murray injury, I think they would have won the title that year if he
didn't he get injured in that. Wasn't that the bubble when he got injured?
No,
it was the next year after.
Next
year. Okay.
Yeah, it was after the Aaron Gordon trade before the playoffs. Okay, they were playing the Warriors, and I'm on record as saying I think that they would have at least went to the finals, if not won the finals.
Yeah.
That West was not very good that year. The Clippers were really the only team that could have challenged them. Kawhi got hurt in the playoffs.
Yep.
I think they were better than the Suns. I think that the Suns got a lot of injury luck on their side, and once they finally faced a healthy team, they lost in the finals. But my whole thing on this is like, I don't know if you can give Jokic a third straight MVP. Just maybe it is narrative, maybe it is like the rarefied air, whatever. I don't know if you can give him that because there's so many good candidates this year. Whereas I felt like the last 2 years, 2 years ago and last year, it really just came down to him, Embiid, and Giannis. And now it feels like we can throw a ton of people's name into the mix. Luka, Tatum, Embiid, like a ton of guys. I know Giannis is having a down year, but he's turning it around right now. Like he has 24 points in the first half against the Wizards. He's had like multiple 40-point games recently. Like, I think there is an argument to be made that Jokic is the best player right now. I think that, from an offensive, and you talked about like the team building with Kawhi and Tatum and the two-way wing type guys, even Kevin Durant.
Yeah, Kevin Durant is the other huge one. Yeah.
That like it makes everything with team building a little bit easier because it's just easier to build around a two-way wing that doesn't have a ton of weaknesses. Yep. But there is the rarefied air of superstars who have flaws that are worth building around, like Steph and Jokic, where it's worth covering up their flaws because their ceiling and how good they can be can lift you up to the finals level, the winning a title level. And like, I just want to get this out of the way, and I know that Sixers fans are going to be mad at me because I'm talking about Jokic winning a third straight MVP, but like, I really think that a lot of these takes about Jokic and the playoffs and all this shit, and even me 2 weeks ago, I was like, I don't know if you can win with a defense this bad, and I'm still like, can you win with a defense this bad? But with how wide open the Western Conference is, and like Zion just got hurt, Ingram's been hurt for a while, and the Pelicans were like the other team that I felt like if they were healthy, it's basically going to come down to like the only team that I think can beat the Nuggets is the Warriors is what I'm trying to say here. Is like with Jokic playing at the level that he's playing at, like, dude, he's shooting like 62% from the field. He is every single game just getting the highest quality shots for himself and his teammates. His floater range shit is insane. His passing is absurd. And the defensive weaknesses are real, and I'm not saying that they aren't, but like there are certain levels where he can contribute on that end at least. And the fact that they can put a bunch of defenders around him and he can lift them up offensively is a big, big thing to me, because I think in a playoff series where he's playing 40 minutes a game, just figure out how to survive those other 8 minutes. And I think that they're going to be like, I would be surprised if it's not like them or the Warriors coming out of the West at this point, just because I'm skeptical of the Pelicans because of health stuff and youth. But
can I tell you something about what I think is going to happen in the West?
What's that?
I'm starting to be suckered back in on the Clippers a little bit.
No, the Clippers are not.
I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm not willing to go there yet. I think we both picked them. And I wrote that off as a wash. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I'm watching. Ty Lue is like tinkering. They don't give a shit about the regular season. Like, it's very clear. And I don't know. I'm watching that. I'm watching that space.
Kawhi just played 3 straight games for the first time all season in the past 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then he takes off like every 4th game still. So it's something to keep an eye on if Kawhi can be Kawhi. And like, by the way,
give you a stat. I don't think they have any back-to-backs after the trade deadline.
None?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think when Young Masayuk was on Low Post, he said that, or he said there's only like 2 or something like that. There's an absurd. They've had like all their back-to-backs and like all their like multi-game things, like the 3 and 4 and stuff like that. All that stuff is like happened in the front half of the year.
Sure.
So I heard that and I was like, interesting. Okay. I think they've been on the road a lot. I don't know. I'm monitoring the Clip situation because I had wrote them off as like dead.
I kind of still think they are. I just think the injury stuff is just like too real with them. Like it's it's really hard to like imagine a world where like Kawhi Leonard plays 40 games and then can play for an entire playoffs and is fine. Like it's just hard for me to wrap my brain around that, especially like I know Paul George has played more games this year, but like he's always bound to miss 20, 30 games and like gets injured a lot. Like, you know, he's older now and like it depends so much on their health. And once again, maybe they don't give a shit about the regular season, but like and the West is, we've joked and called it the Great Midwest, but like the West is still going to have from the first round on tough matchups. And like the reason why I feel comfortable with the Nuggets and the Warriors is because I know if their best player is healthy, I think that they can be the best player in a series against anyone. Mm-hmm. And like the Warriors might be the one matchup where like you can exploit Jokic and the Nuggets defense so much with the perimeter shit that like, and their system that like, it might make Jokic's insane scoring and the Nuggets insane scoring not even that relevant. Like, like they could basically just neutralize that. But I still feel as though like, I don't know, like I feel like there are very few teams that can really exploit that to the level that you can to beat the Nuggets in 7 games. Like the Nuggets still need to make a depth move. Like they need to get one more bench guy for the playoffs. Like I kind of jokingly started with Andre Drummond, but I'm kind of like for that. Like if they could get some, I know Drummond's not super trustworthy in the playoffs, but once again, we're talking about 8 minutes. Can he survive for 8 minutes? Maybe. I don't know.
Can he be better than DeAndre Jordan for 8 minutes?
That's the
litmus test. Yeah.
He has to be. Maybe there's someone else out there, Daniel Gafford, or someone that is just like Rashawn Holmes, just like someone that is like
Kev is going to scream at us for bringing up Daniel Gafford again.
How dare you? He's actually been playing well recently, so suck it, Kev.
Yeah, take that, Kev. You've been owned again.
Owned by us.
Owned by us.
By top 15 center Daniel Gafford.
Daniel Gafford, who is a top 15 center in the league.
Clearly, very clearly.
History will prove us right.
Exactly.
I guess to your point too, the Clippers' big problem is they have literally no center besides Zubac. So if he gets hurt, they're absolutely cooked. But but I guess to go back to the Nuggets and kind of what we're talking about, I think anything could happen in the West. You could tell me anything. Like I joke about the Grizzlies because I just do not trust them. I think they're extremely overrated because they are the small bean drafting team. That said, the West has become so open that it's not crazy that they could go on a run. It's not crazy the Pelicans could go for it. It's not that crazy to me that the Suns even could like go on a run. I think you're probably right that probably the smart money, the like most, I don't know, safe picks would probably be the Nuggets and the Warriors, which is insane when you think about putting the Warriors in there because Steph is still out for like what 10 more games and they are still like 500, aren't they? Like and with the parity in the West, Steph comes back and they're actually figuring some shit out. Like there's a world where they are a half game out of 5th right now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they hit the ground running. They end up with a top 4 seed, and we're not even worried about this come playoff time. Like, once again, still think they might need a rotation player or two, but like maybe they always pull some shit out of their ass. Like Ty Jerome has been playing really well. Dante DiVincenzo has been playing really well. Kaminga's finally like a normal rotation player. Like, there's a world where Clay scored 50 last night.
That's what I'm saying. Like He's still not all the way back, but he's like clearly getting better. Sure. Like I thought he was cooked. I really thought he was cooked. So, shame on me for throwing
How dare
on Klay
you?
Thompson. Yeah.
How dare you? But if we are to look at like what truly is the most valuable player, especially if we want to consider a regular season award.
Yeah.
Jokic should 100% be in the conversation, if not the front runner, which is a complete pivot from where I was before. But I really think that this is the best version of Jokic. Like this is the most efficient. This is the guy who on any given possession is just going to create an insanely efficient look for himself or his teammates. Aaron Gordon is scoring at an incredible clip. Bruce Brown, who's already a useful role player, is even better. Like it really comes down to me as like Jamal Murray being that second offensive threat and his health as well, which, I know that he's taken a little bit of time to get going here, but like, it just feels it feels like if I'm making the safe bet, like you said, I'm going with the teams that have the best players. Like outside of that Suns year when the injuries were crazy, every single year in the finals, the team that comes out of the Western Conference is usually the team that has the best player, whether it's Steph or LeBron or whoever it is that gets to the finals. Like, that's generally speaking the rule when it comes to this shit. And like, I think Jokic and Steph, if we're just talking straight up best players, are very clearly the two best players in the Western Conference right now, along with Luka. But like, Luka's team situation is just too far gone for me to like even consider until I see them really put some shit together.
Well, Luka has a level of heliocentrism where you kind of, to a lesser extent than like Trey, probably on par with someone like Giannis, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Like where
or old Harden, like before they got Chris Paul.
Yeah. Like you were like, there is just some things that he really struggles with, with Giannis, it's just like shooting, like with Luka, it's like defending.
But honestly, like the one thing I will say, and like the Harden stands, if they listen to this, are gonna fucking kill me for this. Yeah. But like, the difference between most heliocentric guys and Luka to me is that like Luka's weakness in his offensive game is his 3-point shooting. Like that's like the only thing that's ever been a weakness. And he shoots like 37% from 3 in the playoffs. Like when he gives a shit, like he's a really good pull-up shooter and he shoots like 11 a game.
Also, he's like absurd in the clutch. Like I think that goes up to like 50 or something like in the clutch. Like he's played the Celtics like 7 times or something like that. And he's hit like a walk-off 3 in like 3 of those games. I do have a lot of like respect for Luka. I just really
do you think that Luka should like, but like if you look at his stats this year and the fact that like, I mean, we joke about like how mid the Mavericks are, but like, dude, they're in 5th. They're 2 games out of 1st right now.
Yeah, they've won like 8 of 10 or something like that. Yeah, like they've really turned it around. I mean, I guess this is just what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like that, we're not gonna. It's kind of fool's gold to try and like do this midway through the season because because
last year Steph was the front runner, then he got hurt. 2 years ago was LeBron, he was the front runner and he got hurt, and Jokic won both years. So like us talking about Jokic now, us talking about Luka now, Tatum, Embiid, whoever. Yeah. In 2 months, someone could get hurt, things could change, and someone else could run away with it.
Like, Tatum, I'm sure Tatum is about due for his insane like pull the season out of his ass, like stretch that he always goes on after the new year for whatever reason, after playing like dog shit for a month to 2 months. Like, so I just don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen with the MVP race. Like I was going insane when I thought like Tatum was clearly the best player and everyone was making it a case. Now I think Tatum's kind of dropped it. Tatum's probably like fallen like 5th, to be honest, like or 6th even in this race. So, but I just, whoever is standing at the end of the year, I think just if you want to give Jokic 3rd straight, I don't have a problem with it if he's the best player. And I think he's played like the best player to this point. Like if the season ended today, I think it would be fine to give him the 3rd.
Yeah, I'm going to get assassinated for even having this on the podcast. I just want to let you know. Like Sixers, we're going to lose Patreon subscribers. People are going to be mad at me. And like, look, I think Embiid should be in the conversation for sure. He's been incredible. Sixers have a top 5 defense. He's leading the league in scoring again. He's been awesome.
You guys like very quietly turned your you guys, what the Sixers are doing would be a much bigger deal if the Nets weren't also doing what they were doing at the same time.
If the Nets weren't doing what the Celtics did last year, but earlier in the season, where like they stumble out of the gate, but then like they go on a run. Like what did they say? They're like 22-6 or something with Jacques Vaughn as coach. Something crazy, dude.
You guys are kind of flying under the radar. Like if you had told, imagine if like we went back to like November
when I was on the ledge.
Yeah, when you were on the ledge, and I told you like, the Sixers are 1 game out of 3rd, and like
3 games out of 1st place, basically. Yeah. Like, yeah.
You guys technically like you could still control your own destiny. Like if everyone wins out, like I think you guys have 3 more games against the Celtics, so you kind of control your own destiny too. Like you could catch the Celtics just on that. But
yeah, it's the Sixers are in a lot better position than I had envisioned them. But I will say I think that, and and part of me thinks that this is stupid boomer bullshit narrative stuff.
Yeah.
The media cares way too. The media thinks that they are basketball media, sports media in general think that their job is the most important job in the world. Like there are people that take this shit very seriously. And Embiid saying after in the playoffs last year that like he doesn't know what he could possibly do to win MVP, he feels like the media just has something against him. he'll never win until he wins in the playoffs. Like, he has to make a conference finals or make the finals in order for the media to ever respect him, because they took, like, the Simmons of the world and the Russillas of the world, that is like killing one of their own family members to suggest such a thing. Yeah. And even if Sixers fans think it's true, even if Embiid thinks it's true, like, it's just the reality of the situation is that he's never going to win him back.
Even guys like even guys like Zach and Howard Beck, like, always, like, they're already complaining about having to deal with like MVP narratives and stuff like that. It's like, well, it's just like your job. You know what I'm saying?
This is like, the industry. This is why we have these conversations.
And I get that, like, it's uncomfy, especially where they put all NBA stuff, like, fucks with your money.
That's stupid. They should get rid of that.
Yeah. That, I get that that's like a problem, but like MVP, there's nothing like that. Like,
nope.
Or maybe there's like one Rose Rule thing, and I think that's literally the only time it's ever happened. He was literally Rose Rule. That is almost never going to matter ever. So just, you know, stop complaining about it. Vote for your guy, and just, you know, like, it is what it is. It's like,
it doesn't really matter at the end.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, like, come on, like, it matters for historical context and stuff, and like, of course, Embiid winning MVP would have been great for his Hall of Fame resume or whatever. But like, all of these guys are like gonna go down. And once again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Legacies are made in the playoffs. Like, if Jokic wins 3 straight MVPs and they flame out in the playoffs and he never wins a title, people will come at him for. And I think that, and once again, I think a lot of these narratives about Jokic's defense, a lot of these narratives about Jokic never winning, I think they're going to age poorly. I just don't think that players are as good as... The only reason that it wouldn't age poorly is because the league is just too stacked with talent now, where like it might just be like, oh, Jokic never really got a shot. But like, odds are, if you're this good for this long, you're good, and you have like, and it's not even like an Embiid situation where like the floor could drop out at any moment. Embiid gets one injury and his career's different. Like, Jokic doesn't leave the ground. He doesn't get injured. Like odds are that he will win a title at some point, whether it's with the Nuggets or with another team. And I think that a lot of this shit will age poorly, but like, that stuff matters way more when we're talking about like legacy stuff than regular season awards ever will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, which is why Jason Tatum,
who's currently losing by, let's check this out.
18, I believe.
18. They cut it. They cut it down.
Cut it to 18. There's a mix here.
Hold on. Let's see how many points Isaiah Joe has to twist the knife. Still at 17. He hasn't played in the second half yet. So clearly Mark Daignault is throwing the game. Is what I'm trying to get at here. Yeah. Sam Presti, your boy.
Sam Presti was literally my boy.
He made the call. No Isaiah Joe in the second half.
I was able to guess. I had a guess coming in. I was like, I bet I know what's going on in this game. I bet the Celtics are missing threes. And lo and behold, 6 for 23. So 11 for 26 for the
many are saying hot shooting merchants.
Yes. Yeah, I'm like barely kidding. Like they are, the Celtics are, they're gonna drive us insane, because there will be some extreme. It's going to happen in at least one of the playoff series. The Celtics will suddenly be in a very bad situation because they have 2 cold shooting games back to back, and it's
you guys versus the Heat in the first round. You guys are way better than the Heat, so I wouldn't be worried about that. But you guys in the Heat in the first round,
there'd be so much anxiety.
It would just be PTSD.
I don't want
stuff.
that.
Like,
yeah,
it's like,
I don't want that. Yeah.
You guys really need what the Bucks did that one year where they just beat the fucking shit out of the Heat. And that is what gives.
That's true. That's what I thought was happening last year with the Nets. Yeah. Like, that was what I thought. I thought they were going to win the title last year, because that's why I wanted the Nets. Because I was like, you have to exercise those demons from like last year. And like, just
once again, like game 4 of the finals. Well, and I that's why I don't think I always think it's the smart move to bet on the player who is the all-time player in a series. And it's not even to say anything negative about the Celtics players. It's to say that Steph Curry, and I remember the day after I went to work and I had a Celtics fan who was my coworker, and he was talking about like all this stuff about like, oh, they were missing this, they were doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know. Sometimes Steph Curry is just Steph Curry, and like, what can you fucking do? Like there's literally no antidote to one of the 10 greatest players of all time.
Well,
sometimes
that and they were up against another historical force in that Jordan Poole saw courtside baddies. So there was no way for them to. That was when the series was decided. Was when the courtside baddies were. Yeah. Did you see that? Have you guys seen that? That's a bit. You guys should check that out. This is Jordan Poole.
Seeing baddies.
Yeah, it's
somewhere age 22 to 30, possibly.
Yeah, or no, yeah. I'd say just women. If there's women at an NBA game, those are baddies, and Jordan Poole is going off.
It's going to be a pool party, folks.
There is a pool party because he saw baddies.
That's right.
I got to be wet. I can't believe I had to see that again. That annoyed me when it happened. I was like, this is one of the most forced pieces of shit I've ever seen in my life.
It's so annoying.
And then they did it again, and I was like, no! It's like, shut up. It's like, I just shut up. Whoever you are for House of Highlights or our Bleacher Report that makes these videos, go back to doing Game of Zones. That was less annoying. Just do that. Anyone who makes NBA media content as like a part of their podcast and it's like off of the thing, those people should be shot. Anyone who did that, like maybe made like a half hour special out of their podcast that just sort of was sort of meta in some ways and had a commentary that's just
related to like the holiday season.
Yeah, those people should be killed. Yes. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah,
specifically
absolutely.
one guy.
One person. One guy who did that. Yeah.
Okay. So all right. Let's move on to, we have a few Sixers things we got to get to before we get out of here. Which is now I'm entering the psychosis part of the season again, where it's January and you kind of just sit around and you think about the team. I got a question actually from one of our Patreon subscribers, Brett Stevenson, who said, how is the DeJounte Murray trade for the Hawks any different from the Sixers signing Al Horford a few years ago? Because the Hawks right now, I know that we talked about them last time because we talked about Trey. We talked about everything that's going on with them. They are currently 17-20, just lost to the shorthanded Warriors last night without Steph Curry.
Yep.
They are currently sitting at 9th place in the Eastern Conference. They're only 9 games out of first. I mean, they are 5.5 out of 5th, which is like really like the mark you want to hit. They're 4.5 out of 6th, which is out of the play-in. But right now they're looking like a play-in team. And it has been ugly. So what is the difference in your mind between these two things is what Brett wants to know.
Yeah, you guys didn't trade JJ Redick for a first-round pick afterwards.
We lost him in free agency for nothing, so that might even be worse. To be fair, he was not the same player after he left the Sixers.
Yeah. Well, wasn't there one more year? I thought he played for you guys for one more year. Where the Horford? Oh wow, okay.
That was a grave one of the grave sins was that we had no shooting.
Well, because that's the Hawks' problem right now is they just don't have shooting. So maybe this is a more apt comparison than I thought. I mean, I would say a big difference is DeJounte Murray is not 33 or 34 years old. Would probably be the biggest one. He's young. He's quite young, right? Isn't he like 27, 26?
26, I believe.
He was 19 in that draft. He's really young.
DeJounte Murray is currently 26 years old.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, there are some things, you do have the cannibalizing of your best player in, Embiid and whatever.
Embiid was not the same player that he, after that season is when Embiid made his leap. Yeah. And I still think that the Horford thing would have went better if Embiid was the player that he is now than what he was then.
Yeah. And, there's also like bigs having your spacing all fucked up is way different than like having a bunch of guard. I still am not really that worried about the Hawks. I mean, define worried. I didn't think they had a chance to win the title this year. So like, I guess I'm not surprised that they're kicking around where they are, but I also still think they can be good. I still think they could climb up into like if the bottom drops out for one of these top 5 teams, I would not be shocked if the Hawks caught someone. Like,
sure.
if they caught the Cavs, if like Garland goes down, or like if they caught the
I'd
Bucks,
be pretty surprised at this point. There's just something off, man. Like Nate McMillan
there is something off.
Yeah, Nate McMillan's like at press conferences. Like I feel like he's about to do like, I feel like he's about to just like fucking like leave the sport entirely.
Just
talk about retiring after the season. Like it's bad, man.
Trae Young demands one thing, and it's blood of coaches. Like the Hawks are a pain machine that only runs on the souls of head coaches. They had to destroy Lloyd Pierce to get to the conference finals, and now Nate McMillan must be sacrificed at the altar.
If Nate McMillan retires tonight, it's possible that the Hawks go on a run. Otherwise, I'm counting them
championship.
Out. Yeah.
If Nate McMillan gets fired, I think the Hawks win the championship this year. I'm just gonna say that. Like I think that there's a strong possibility.
It's like a high likelihood, I would say. Yeah.
Trae Young needs to see he needs his head coach beheaded like Ned Stark in front of him. He is the Joffrey of the.
Bring me a head coach.
Yeah, bring me the coach's head. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the vibes are awful. It seems like it's Trae Young's fault for the most part. I mean, their spacing's fucked up. I really think trading Kevin Huerter has a lot to do with this, and still having John Collins on the team has a lot to do with this.
John Collins, who's shooting like total dog shit this season.
Yeah, like they just don't have spacing. And Trae Young, I really think it's going to balance out at some point. I mean, maybe not. Maybe he just has a 30% 3-point shooting season. But the fact that you had this generational shooter and he has his worst season the year that you just don't have any spacing. I don't think that's a coincidence either. Like they just need shooting. They had so much shooting and then they traded and fucked up all of it. And I think that is what we're seeing play out.
It is similar in that.
I guess it is similar to the Sixers. Yeah.
And then Morey came in and was like, "Oh, we need shooting.
Yeah.
So get Danny Green and get Seth Curry and draft Tyrese Maxey, and then you'll be good." Like
my knee-jerk response was to reject that comp entirely, but it's actually not that bad, besides DeJounte being a younger player.
We keep saying that the Wolves are like the 2019-2020 Sixers. I think the Hawks might be a more apt comparison just due to like the crossroad that the franchise is at too with their star player. Yeah. And like something's got to be shaken up. Something's got to change. Yep. Like they need more spacing. They're underperforming. And by the way, every fucking NBA podcast makes me sick when they talk like Brian Windhorst talked about the Wolves this week. And it was like, they just need veteran leadership. And I'm like, really? That's what they need? They just traded their entire fucking everything they could possibly trade except for their two best players for Rudy Gobert, and they just need veteran leadership. No, they're fucked. Like let's be real. Like they're fucked until they decide to trade one of those two players, and then they basically can maybe reconfigure the team around a new identity or something. But like I think that the Timberwolves and the Hawks, that they're kind of in a similar boat in terms of like win-loss. But I think moving forward, I would imagine that the Hawks are the ones that rebound more so than the Timberwolves. Like the Timberwolves just seem so down bad. It's crazy to me.
The Timberwolves don't have anyone who's an anchor around their neck the way that fucking Gobert is. Like he's like one of the worst contracts in the league right now. Like you can't trade him.
You're stuck with it. You'd have to include 2 first-round picks just to get off the contract.
Like, you can't. Like, how many picks would you want to trade Tobias Harris for Rudy Gobert? Like,
I don't even know if I 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And even then, like, I mean, obviously the Sixers are in a unique situation because we have Joel Embiid, but like
Tobias is one of the worst contracts in the league, and it's like you wouldn't even think about it. You're like, oh no, absolutely under no. It's that bad. Like he's one of the only, and not only is he a bad contract, he's one of the only bad contracts. A lot of these bad contracts don't exist that much anymore.
I mean, like even the DeJounte thing, like this is never going to happen. But like DeJounte makes like $14 million a year. Like if they wanted to trade him, they'd get positive value back still. Like they would like easy. They could just move him, get back some picks, or get back a young player or whatever it is. Like I don't really think that I don't think it's comparable in that the Sixers max the guy who didn't fit with their best player in that he was older and aging, and we didn't know if he was going to be 33, 34 years old. And we didn't foresee him regaining the value in the same way. That like, you know, it's turned out about as good as it could for Horford and now the Celtics. But like the DeJounte thing, like you said, like he's still young. Like I think he would still get positive value back, even though I'm never been a big DeJounte guy. Like I think that the Hawks situation you could figure it out. It's just not going to be figured out this year. In the same way that like the Sixers kind of figured it out, they at least got back to like the point where they're a second round team and shit. Like once again, I guess the major difference to me is that like the Sixers were thought to be these contenders, and the Hawks have never really even been in that conversation either. Yeah. But there is and this was our big concern when this trade was made, was that I was maybe a little bit higher on the trade just because I was like, I don't really think they gave up that much, and like. This was before they traded Kevin Huerter, which I didn't get at all. But the one thing that I will say going back to that trade is like we all had issues with the fit, and like the fit is just not it, dude. Like, Ben Taylor did a video on this, and it's basically like a your turn, my turn offense, and pretty much everyone else is just standing around, not great spacing. It just something has to give there in Atlanta, and like. I don't really see them being able to fix it until after the season. So maybe the comparison is better. But like, I guess in theory, you would say like, well, two guards, like Trey is pretty locked in at the 1, but like DeJounte can play the 2 or the 3. There are multiple guards. Most teams don't play too big. So like that was the difference between the two. But like, it's looking pretty fucking bad right now.
Speaking of looking pretty fucking bad right now, you want to guess how many points the Oklahoma City Thunder have at the end of the third?
Well, they had 90 earlier, so I'm guessing 105.
They have 122 points at the end of the third. Ooh, I don't. Oh my
God, good. They're up 30.
Yeah, I don't feel good. Ooh,
and I just want to say, the other day after the Sixers crushed the Thunder, I was like, whatever, it's the Thunder, and SGA was playing in that game. I was like, look. One game, whatever, but like they crushed them from beginning to end pretty much, except of course they gave me like a little heart attack in the middle. But like I keep forgetting that the Thunder are like weirdly competitive this year. Like,
they were competitive in the first game with the Celtics. The Celtics like needed to sweat out the game in Boston when they played. Like, so man,
SGA Ewing theory.
SGA, oh my God. Yeah, Sam Presti. Sam Presti is going to finally get this is Sam Presti's revenge on me right now. Lou Dort is plus 31 with 23 points, which is
funny because I was watching the game the other night and I was like, is Lou Dort even good?
By the way, I'm calling it right now. Bill Simmons is about to have one of the most cream-filled, disgusting monologues on Giddey you've ever heard.
Oh no!
This is. He is going to triple down on Giddey.
Like, the only player I came out higher on watching that Sixers game the other night than I was going into it was Giddey. Yeah. And the weird thing about Giddey is like I still am not like in the like Giddey's going to be a star conversation. I never have been. Yeah. But like I guess I mean you could say this about 100 players. But like if the shot comes around, he's very good at he's really good in that floater range. He's a great playmaker. Yeah. I don't think the defense is quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm still skeptical about the finishing and the shooting because that's what it would take for him to become like a legit, like positive, like impact real player. But like with that weird thing that they're building in OKC with like all the shooting, like they have shooting at every fucking position, dude. Like, like if Chet is Chet and we think that he can be that, like maybe Giddey shooting isn't as much of an issue, even with some concerns.
Dog, they didn't even have Poku tonight. This is tough.
Yeah, he's been out.
Yeah. You know what it is that they were able to start a shooting guard named A. Wiggins, which the Celtics don't do well against. Yeah, once you've
got Tatum's head.
Yeah. It's giving him trauma flashback.
Aaron Wiggins, the Celtics killer.
Yeah.
Who I forgot as a person. 122 points through 3 quarters.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. We love it.
They scored 48 points in the third quarter?
I believe so, yes. Yes. Yes,
this correct. Is unbelievable, dude. I literally texted you earlier and said, you don't have to worry about this. SGA is out, so we'll just record the podcast.
Yeah, this is the Trill reverse curse is so strong. Like, you're watching it. I just assumed
you guys were going to roll through them, but Jesus Christ. All right, well, does that mean that when do the Nets play? Tomorrow? Yeah. The Nets play the Bulls tomorrow. If the Nets win, they're in first place. Or
no, tied.
Tied.
We have the tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker, yeah. So you'll be tied technically, but
we'll still have one. But not great. Not what I was hoping for out of this road trip to lose 2 in a row. But hey, what are you gonna do? This is what I'm saying. Like, the Celtics just have stinkers, man. Like, they are high variance. I'm obviously not watching the game because we're recording this, so
But you could tell based on this. I mean,
I've watched a lot of Celtics games. I could tell. I have my Celtics group chat going off behind me. I know what they're saying. They're saying it's insane that we can't hit threes. Like, I wish we were able to get more consistent offense somehow. No Rob Williams. Rob Williams innocent, by the way. He wasn't in the game tonight.
You're disgusting. Your narratives will just never die.
Yeah.
Speaking of sicko narratives that I've been a part of, I just want to hit on 2 things before we get out of here. First off, Embiid, Player of the Month. Yay, good for Joel. Happy for him that he got Player of the Month.
Trill doing the Joker clap when he's in fucking MCU.
Get to a conference finals and I'll care.
Exactly. Really turning on your audience. They're going to find you. By the way, if you are an assassin after Trill, he has told me where he shops for groceries.
No!
I will sell you that information.
Multiple people that listen to this podcast already know because they've run into me there.
But Joel, Player of the Month, we love that for him.
Yes, good for him. 9-4. The Sixers were in the games that Embiid played. Honestly, for him to win Player of the Month, he averaged I think he almost averaged 40 for the month, which is, I mean, he puts up 40 and I don't even blink. Like, that's how incredible of a scorer he has become. An efficient 40, the most efficient scoring season of his career as well. He's shooting 53% from the field right now. The 3-point shot started off like shit, but that's slowly coming back. Gets to the line a ton still. Yeah, I mean, he's been incredible. His passing's even been better, even though some nights he looks like he has no idea what the fuck he's doing. But incredible month from Embiid. Should certainly be in the MVP conversation if he's not already. Once again, I've already said I don't think that he's going to win, but I think that he needs to be in the conversation again for sure. Let's talk about another thing that I have been losing my mind over a little bit. And there's a player who I've never been a fan of, and many people that listen to the podcast since the beginning know that I've tried to trade him in multiple Harden trades. The first one, the second one. Matisse Thybulle is he's barely in the Sixers rotation right now. He's been on the fringes of the rotation. Some games, like the Thunder game, we played 20 minutes because of injuries. He plays spot minutes in these games that are against good opponents like the Pelicans. He is currently behind George Niang, Tobias Harris, DeAnthony Melton, and most notably Daniel House in the rotation right now, which I think that he's honestly just a better player than Daniel House, despite his offensive shortcomings. And that's probably the one guy where I think that he should be replaced in the rotation. But right now, he's only played 365 minutes this year. But in those minutes, the Sixers have a net rating of plus 14.3. And when Thybulle doesn't play, they have a net rating of 0.8 per 100 possessions in the 1,100 minutes that he has not played so far this year. So my question to you is, some of this might be a competition thing. Some of this might just be the spot minute thing. Some of this might just be like when Thybulle isn't, he's shooting 35% from the field to start the year, or 35% from 3 to start the year. Very small sample of threes. My question to you is what do you really take from on-offs in the regular season? And can they be applied to a player like Thybulle? Or you really only care about the stuff when it's like the higher end guys, when it's like the Jokic's, the Embiids, that kind of stuff?
I think there's something to it. I mean, like an example would be Cedi Osman.
Your boy.
It's going to sound like a bit, but like he's a huge plus minus guy. You know what I'm saying? And I think it does tell a story in large sample sizes. That's like the key thing. Like I think it needs to be like a half season or so. This is how I was able to parse out that Rob Williams was going to be a good player if he ever played, because this is how I figured out the same thing about Marcus Smart, even when he was shooting like 28%. Like, I was an on-off floor stat sicko. Like, I love.
Sure.
I use that a lot because I think
Will, to Will's credit, who came on the podcast before the season, did this with Nick Claxton, and now Nick Claxton is one of the best centers in the NBA.
You're right. I think that it can help point you in the right direction. It doesn't always work. It's not always good, but it can like turn you on to stuff. And I think it does. The reason I think plus bias does like a better job than like points or something like that, especially in large sample sizes, is because it shows you units, you know what I'm saying? And it shows you team composition. It might not even have necessarily anything to do with the player, but it just shows how he fits within the team composition if over a larger sample size, that guy is scoring. And it shows you what he's putting on the table, you know, like, so for example, the Sixers are less starved for offensive production these days versus like previous years.
Sure.
They can use a defensive specialist like, Thybulle a little bit more, you know, they can afford to have a guy who chills on the nail and is like a free safety defensive menace, you know, like, and that in turn helps the Sixers get out in transition. Like, they're one of the worst transition teams in the NBA. So like kind of instigating some of that stuff. So I think, is Matisse Thybulle like necessarily like a, that level of player positive on most teams, Is he suddenly a way different player from who he was on the Sixers? I don't necessarily think so, but I think he probably fits better with this iteration of the Sixers, and which is why he should be getting more of a look, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And kind of going back to your Shetty Osman point is like, they don't have wings, and the Sixers don't have wings. And it's like Thybulle being a competent enough offensive player, like he's still very largely a negative on that end.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can really look at it in a vacuum, in that I've always joked that Thybulle's greatest shot creation is the turnovers he creates, because it leads to the most efficient offense in the NBA, which is runouts.
Yeah.
And with a passer like James Harden on the team, with a team that doesn't really get out and run as much, having those guys like Paul Reed and Thybulle in the rotation that can generate those turnovers, D'Anthony Melton, is incredibly good for that kind of offense, like you pointed out. In addition to that, like, if other than Tobias, there's really no one that you could even consider a two-way wing. And I think one of the issues that the Sixers have had over the years is they have too many unitaskers, where it's like guys who can really only do one thing. And Thybulle kind of falls into that category. But when you're starved for that one thing, which is generating turnovers, which is playing good off-ball defense, honestly, even on-ball, he played great against CJ McCollum in the spot minutes that he played against him in games where CJ was absolutely red hot from the floor, that it is extremely beneficial. But to Thybulle's credit, like, the Sixers have been in the regular season, and once again, all of my issues with Thybulle have always come back to the playoffs. And I think that the regular season and the playoffs are different when you get into these more competitive series. They find out your weaknesses as a player. They find out your weaknesses as a team, and they drill it to death, like the Heat did. And like a few years ago, even the Hawks did. The Sixers, with Matisse Thybulle on the court the last 3 seasons, so this is a sample size of 3,300 minutes, are a +6 per 100 possessions, and they're 3 points better per 100 possessions with Thybulle on the court than off the court. So I do think that there is something he has to be in the rotation. All of my issues with him, stemming back to last year, stemming back to every year that he's played, have always been based on the playoffs. And like, there's too many minutes in the regular season for you to expect that like every single minute will be taken up by guys who can only play in the playoffs. Like, it's fine to run a 10-man rotation in the regular season, 11-man rotation in the regular season, where it's a bit more of a democracy in terms of minutes when you scale down to like that 7 or 8-man rotation that you get in the playoffs. And I honestly, like, I don't think the shot is fixed, but like, I can live with 33%. He's shooting 35% right now. Like, I can live with a below average 3-point shooter if you're bringing a lot on the defensive end when the Sixers really need it in certain matchups. So I still think that he's going to eat. Him and Trez are going to probably eat against shitty teams, and it's going to help their net rating a lot. But it's still like, when you don't have depth, you got to try shit. You just got to try shit. And like, it's a worthy endeavor to try Matisse Thybulle in the Sixers rotation.
I honestly am like even a little bit more positive than that, just because I think that I just think that with James Harden on your team and like Tyrese Maxey, this iteration of Tyrese Maxey, I just think it's worth going back to seeing if Thybulle fits a little bit better.
Sure.
Like, because you guys were so starved for shot creation. We've talked about Joel having to do everything.
Sure.
Sixers, like, and just like he was the offense and like everything was there.
That's still an issue. He's still in that mode, and they need to figure out a way around that.
Well, yeah, I mean it's
not his fault. That's a
Doc
thing.
Rivers. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yeah, it's a Doc Rivers issue. Yes. But I think that Thybulle, I think if he's playing with Embiid, Harden, and Maxey, for example, I think that is a way different situation. I mean, I don't know if you would want that 3-guard lineup, but he's pretty big. Like, he can play very long. Yeah. Like if he's playing with those guys, that is way different than playing with like Joel Embiid and like Ben Simmons, and
Tobias Harris is the main shot creator.
Tobias Harris, yeah, exactly. Like he can't create very, very well. He can't dribble. The 3-point shooting, but this is a way different team. The floor balance is totally different. And he's a pretty good cutter too. That's the other thing.
He's become much better.
Yeah. With a passer like James Harden on the team and like all of these guys, but Joel's a pretty good passer, like especially at a double team. I don't know. I even think there might be a place for him in the playoffs eventually, like when you get down to it, just
as a bit player, like
not like a starter.
No, but like an eighth man that like closes quarters and end games possibly in certain situations. Like he can survive for 10 minutes in a playoff series. Like I don't 10, 15 minutes. Like
I don't think he's going to like kill you guys the way that like Tony Allen did or like Ben Simmons did. You know what I'm saying? Like I think he will be respectable enough on this iteration of the team that you guys will be able to survive. And I think he'll be able to get like 10 to 15 minutes in the playoffs, honestly. And matchup dependent, but like I think he has a real place against like the Nets or someone like that. Sure. Honestly, the Celtics, like that could be a huge difference maker. He's given the Celtics trouble before, especially with turnovers being a Celtics weakness. And that is what he is good at. I still remember that game when he just chilled at the nail and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just could not figure that out to like not swing that pass that way. And you guys got like 7 runouts off that and won that game. Like,
and honestly, like I've talked about like Thybulle being the main trade piece coming up to this deadline, but like his value is so low right now. There's no way you can trade him for anything that's like remotely positive. Like you're not getting back Jay Crowder from Matisse Thybulle. Like you're going to get back a shitty rotation player that like you're better off trying to keep Thybulle and hope that you can maybe get him on a bargain extension after the season even, and then maybe trade him a year from now or 2 years from now if he doesn't fit with the team still. Like I'm not back in on Thybulle, but I am like he is a good regular season or a solid regular season player and has potential to find a role once again with like, and we're going to talk about the last thing we talk about here is the bench unit shit. And like, just give me a normal coach. Like I know Doc, I know they've kind of like figured it out over the course of the season, but I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that they have an overwhelming amount of regular season talent and that eventually any fucking team would have figured this out. Like, I'll give Doc credit for certain things, but like the all bench unit shit is like, at a certain point I was like, maybe this will work because this is a more talented version of the Sixers, and especially when Joel and Harden were out and they were playing great. But we have 475 minutes without both Joel Embiid and James Harden, and they have a -5 net rating in those minutes, okay? So that's 475 minutes and -5.4 net rating. In the minutes that Joel and James play together, they have a +9.4 net rating. In the minutes where Joel plays with no Harden, it's a +7.5. And the minutes where it's Harden with no Embiid, it's +5.9. So the Sixers are winning every single minute across the board. And once again, some of it is inflated by playing shittier teams, injured teams, whatever. But they now have a sample size of almost 500 minutes for each of these, except for the Harden without Embiid minutes is only 279. But they are a positive per 100 possessions with every single iteration of this, essentially, except for the all bench units, which Doc said today or yesterday that he wants to try to figure out the all bench thing. Like, it's 2023, man. No one is doing this anymore.
Yeah.
What teams do this? What teams don't stagger their stars?
It's bad. It's bad. He needs to. He like the winning. That's the sad consequence of the winning streak. Is it seems like that is. If I can cheer you up momentarily, the Thunder have a real shot at 150 on the Celtics in regulation. So,
wow, that's incredible. Also,
what's the highest regulation score? Isn't it like 160 or 170, something like that?
170, probably close to it at least.
Yeah. So it's going well. Celtics will probably give up 150 before the end of this game. There's still 5 minutes left in the. 4:16 left in the fourth. And
also, Giannis has a 50 almost triple double right now against the Wizards. Okay. So Nihilus Bucks is DMing me, thanking us for saying this about the Bucks a week ago. He thinks that
we gave them absolutely. We owe it to the Celtics to write them off. We should do an episode here soon, just so I can
sayonara.
Bring my boys back. Yeah.
But once again, just back to the doc. Like all bench units, like. I talk about like, okay, there are certain things in the regular season you can do and you can't do in the playoffs, but like who benefits from all bench units is my general question here. Who benefits from this? No one? Other teams? Montrezl Harrell? Like who?
You did a Tucker Carlson. Who's benefiting from this? It's not me. It's Doc Rivers, his liberal friends. At the Lincoln Project. I mean, who's doing this? Who's creating these all bench units? Is it Matisse Thybulle? Is he interested in maybe taking up a greater offensive load?
Is Shake Milton the cause here?
Folks, I'm just asking questions. I love that Tucker Carlson mad at Doc. He wouldn't be mad at Doc because Doc's a Lincoln Project.
I was going to say he would agree with Doc on a lot of things.
Well, he would agree with Doc on a lot of things, but the Lincoln Project thing is a bridge too far, but
true. It's a good point.
Yeah,
he would probably not like that, but yeah. Wow. Let's see how many points Isaiah Joe has before we get out of here. 21.
21. So it's okay. Cool. You live to fight another day.
Twisting the fucking knife in my side.
No, that's fine. It's 20 is not that bad. You know, they had there's a chance if Terrace Mann gets 2 more points that they had out 5 players with 20 or more points. Sorry, Trey Mann. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's tough. So pretty good. It's pretty good. You love that if you're the Celtics. At least the bad Jalen Williams didn't have a good game. I mean, he was plus 11 on us, which I don't love. Yeah, Trey Mann,
Williams, better game.
Trey Mann being like flirting with plus 30. He's probably Lou Dort ended the game plus 31 in 28 minutes. That hurts. That really hurts.
Yeah, that is tough.
It's not
33 points.
This is what I'm saying though. The Celtics. People are going to see games like this and think the Celtics are like bad. They're not, but they are capable. They are very Jekyll and Hyde. They are very feast or famine, and this is going to happen in the playoffs at some point. They're going to have nasty, stinky games like this that are going to.
So everything we said about the Bucks last week, apply it to the Celtics as well.
Yeah, exactly. They're suddenly back. Yeah. So who's the number 1 team? That's right. It's the Nets. Bloch won.
Oh
he's
God.
He's Heisenberg right now. He'd say, I won.
I won. I always knew.
He won.
You doubted me.
Yeah. What does Pete Weber say when he hits that straight? Who do you think you are? I am. Yeah, that's Bloch right now.
That's right. Yeah, dude. Oh my God, the Nets. Are we living in a world where the Nets are gonna win the finals? And a few months ago we were like, are they done? Like, is this Jover? Is this Joe Tsai over?
They're literally doing the Celtics speed run, but like more extreme. Like it is crazy. They're doing this. Somebody had a very interesting. I forget which of the pardon me, whoever this was. So one of the basketball chats was talking about it. It was a really good point. Imagine if they had hired Ime Udoka when they fired Steve Nash and he for all this. Yeah, like
100% would have been. He would have been the genius coach that dragged them to. In reality, it was just like Steve Nash was like the worst fucking coach of all time, and the reason. And by the way, he was the reason that Harden wanted out. Like it came out later that like he hated Steve Nash.
Yeah, well, this is the. I mean, I guess it's also which is also a Kyrie and KD problem because that was KD's guy. And,
sure,
that was the choice he made. But That's also like a triple score highlighted by like that Kyrie game winner. I think it was against the Hawks. They have like the mic'd up version of that of the timeout, and like Jacques Vaughn like draws up a play, and all of a sudden Katie is like, "Hey, make that for Kyrie," and it's like he can hit that, and they do it, and it works. But it's just like,
well, what did Kyrie tell you?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's like, a collective.
That's what I'm saying.
I could be the coach. You could be the coach.
Hey, maybe he was onto something. I mean, everyone poo-pooed that, but like, look, this is communism in action. This is what it is. This is what's happening. The Nets are communism. Yeah,
full communism in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So this is what happens when you apply communism.
Exactly.
Thank you, Katie. Katie, you poster. You know. I'm gonna leave the other comparisons on the table.
I'm a Marxist Kevinist.
I'm a Marxist. I believe in Kevin Durant. It was like Lennon. God, that Bender jersey. That's like the funniest NBA post of all time. Whenever
Kevin Durant,
turn the Bender jersey into Kevin Durant.
It's so good. It's so good, man. So we actually probably should talk about the Suns next time because it looks like they're in some deep shit. I do just want to hit actually before we officially end this. Did you see the article?
OKC did hit 150 for everyone.
Good. Good. Everyone is excited to hear.
Yeah. Put the Celtics back down and like they were settling on defense, but not anymore. They're going to be back in the hole. They're going back in the hole.
So
no top 10 defense this year.
No, it's Jover.
It's Jover.
It's Jover for Joe Mazzulla.
Joe Mazzulla. Yeah.
So the Suns are the 8th seed right now. We'll talk about them a little bit more next time. But Brian Windhorst came out with an article today that basically said that their owner, who has in the process of selling the team, Sarver, who's like the biggest piece of shit in the league, still has a hand in like what trades they can do before the deadline because he has to sign off on the money.
Let's fucking go.
So they're in a bad position right now with Booker out.
He's going to tank them out of spite. Like he's absolutely the type of guy who would do that.
100% chance.
Yeah, so God, that sucks.
We'll talk about the Suns more in depth next episode, but I just needed to throw that thought out there that he is.
Yeah, it's
absolutely crazy. But all right, it's a good place to end it. We're gonna get this one under 2 hours, folks. We're doing well over here. Yeah.
So learn from Sad Man. Talk about YKB on all your dates.
Subscribe to the Patreon. Also, promo code SLOP on Underdog. All of that good shit. And I'll be live streaming a Sixers game soon. I'll let you guys know on the next episode which one it is. So,
yeah.
Peace.
Later, everyone.